So I'm super excited. It is the second Wednesday of this month, and that means that we are going to have the NPO University training. So I'm Jania Massey. I am the founder and CEO of JSM Consulting, and I'm also the founder and executive director of Stiletto Boss University. And I am here because so many times I always get asked questions about different things in nonprofit. And I was like, what is the best way for me to serve and also reclaim my time, like Auntie Maxine Waters says? So I created this private Facebook page and our own YouTube channel so we can really dive deep into nonprofit topics and all those good things. So today our topic is about grants, okay? And people always ask me about grants. Actually, last month we talked about fundraising, but we're going to dive into grants, and I have a very special guest, someone that I'll tell y'all how I met Kelly, at least how I think I met Kelly. But Kelly is going to be our special guest today, and I'm uber excited. So I want to read her bio because she is thebomb.com. Okay. So Kelly Cartwright is a veteran nonprofit leader with a passion for inspiring capacity in people and organization. Kelly is the educator at her core, but not in the traditional sense. While she has taught in the classroom, she brings her heart for learning and teaching everywhere she works and volunteers. With over 2 decades of public service, her goal has always been to facilitate every person's recognition of their gifts, talents, and abilities. Kelly obtained her BA in political science from South Carolina State University and earned a MPA from UNC Greensboro. She credits these two institutions with shaping the trajectory of her personal and professional life. Through relationships and skills developed during her educational experience, Kelly has had the opportunity to work in government, public health, youth services, and philanthropy, including her current position with the United Way of Central Carolinas, serving 5 counties in the Charlotte metro area. She began her career with United Way and resource allocation and is now the regional director of development for Cabarrus County. She is uber passionate about her work, and I put uber in there because she is, and her family is her top priority. She is married to Keith Cartwright, whom she has 2 kids. So I want you guys to put your snaps into the comments because I'm about to bring Kelly on here. Kelly!
Hi.
How are you?
Wow. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad that you can join us. So I always, the story of when I met you is uber funny. Because
I don't remember when I met you.
I know we had to have met through United Way, but I met you first, and then I met your husband.
Okay.
And then I was like, wait, I never connected that y'all were the same people, that y'all were even married or the last name. So then I was like, and then I think I saw y'all come in somewhere, and I was like, wait a minute. So it was just funny. But I think we met through United Way with just your work with Unite Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't remember. So I don't know.
I don't remember. It seems like I've known you forever.
Right.
I know it hasn't been forever, but I don't remember.
Right. So what I like to do with my guests, I like to play a game first of this and that. So you have to choose one or the other. It may be personal, it may be business, and I may be inquisitive and ask why you chose that, but
okay,
that's what it is. So, well, this is personal because I know where you live. Do you prefer Cabarrus County or Mecklenburg County?
Cabarrus.
Why?
Except for Mecklenburg, where my mama and the rest of my family live. But Cabarrus, I think I'm a small town girl at heart. Even though Cabarrus is not that small, it's smaller than Mecklenburg.
Got it. Okay. So do you prefer grassroots organizations or large size organizations?
Oh, you gonna make see. So prefer is subjective, but I will say in my work, I enjoy working with grassroots organizations more. Put it like that.
So why?
just the passion that they have and the work that they're doing. It's just more boots on the ground. I really enjoy working with that crowd. The higher up you go, the more you get a little bougier. Um, and the passion kind of filters a little bit. So I enjoy the grassroots work.
Okay. So, do you prefer crab cakes or chicken?
I prefer to cook chicken. I prefer to eat crab cakes.
Y'all, this is just funny. So, I don't even know why I came over there. I just know it was New Year's Day.
I don't remember why either, but you're always welcome.
Yeah. And clearly, I was welcome that day because I went over to Kelly's house and I did not leave until the next day. I literally had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And crab cakes was on the menu. So I always ask about crab cakes. Okay. Another question. Do you prefer writing grants or raising funds?
Writing grants.
Okay. Why? Ooh.
Because I can just go into a hole and do the work by myself and make it happen, and boom, I got a product, and you don't have to deal with people.
Okay. Well, I'm going to end it there so we can hop into these questions about grants. Everybody knows, and the reason why I ask guests to come on this show is because I do not like writing grants and I do not care to do fundraising. But clearly I have to because I am, like I said earlier, the founder and executive director of an organization, and that's what nonprofits do. I mean, that's what businesses do. They have to have money. They have to make this work. They have to remain sustainable. But one thing that I've learned being in the nonprofit industry is that grant writing is just a portion of what you do when it comes to your streams of revenue, if you want to say, but it also is the most time consuming to me. So I wanted to say, my first question to you is, how do you think grant writing has evolved over the years?
So my years go back to early 2000s, actually before that. So I have been in nonprofits pretty much my whole career. And I've either been funded by a grant, been in the process of writing a grant to continue a program, or been giving out grants. So in my 20 years, what I've seen is grant writing has become more of a profession as opposed to just a side hustle that people did. Now it's an actual profession. You've got professional grant writing organizations. I've seen changes in funders. So you've got an increasing number of corporate funders, family foundations, or just regular individuals wanting to engage in philanthropy. You've got foundations there. I've seen corporations really become more streamlined in their giving. So instead of just writing a check like they used to, now they've got a whole corporate social responsibility program where you got to apply for that corporate gift. People giving through donor advised funds as community foundations, their assets have just expanded. And so donor advised funds has become a financial strategy for people. So people give through those. And just as individual wealth has increased tremendously for the top, their philanthropy has increased. And their philanthropy is very strategic. It's very formal. So that has definitely changed. What is being funded has changed. So it used to be you just fund kids, fund seniors, fund the basic stuff. Now you're funding what's trending. Like now DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, racial issues, that's trending. So those things that are trending, grants have also become more politicized as well. So I've seen that change. The more grants are open now to grassroots organizations that may not be 501c3s. Let's see, there's a stronger focus. Again, grant writing has become more formalized, much stronger focus on data, evaluation, and just formal pieces of it, where it used to be just government grants that were like that. But now most of the grants that you see are going to ask you about evaluation. They're going to ask you about data. They're going to ask you about evidence-based things and research and all that. And then what I'm seeing now, just locally, is that people are trying to streamline their application process, particularly foundations, in order to make them become more accessible to people who don't have that giant infrastructure that your larger name organizations have.
Right. So can you explain to people what a donor advised fund is? Because that is something that a lot of people don't understand it or know what it means. And I think a lot of people get that confused with what really the Foundation of the Carolinas, what they do, how they house it. So can you explain a little bit more about that?
So I'm talking about the ones that are at community foundations. I'm not a financial professional, so I don't know outside of that what they are, but I know that in a community foundation, the difference between a community foundation and just a regular foundation pretty much is that a community foundation is like a bank, but it's for the community. It's for community grants and community funds and things like that. So it's like a little bank. Donor advised funds are when people decide, I want to be philanthropic, excuse me. So I'm going to take this chunk of money and house it at this community foundation. And then annually or semi-annually or whenever, I am going to direct this community foundation on how to give out money. So how much money to give out and who to give it to. So it's like a little bank account at a community foundation that is advised by whoever owns it. Donor advised funds can get a little sticky because as an individual, if I had a donor advised fund, I can give to whatever I want to. And it's not scrutinized the way just regular open giving would be. So I can give to this random weird organization that has way left or way right values, and it's okay. The foundation is not going to say anything about it. Nobody's going to say anything about it. I do what I want to with it. It's my money. I can direct it where I want it to direct it.
Right. So you mentioned, let me say this. I will say I agree with everything you said about how it's evolved over the years, because I've been in this space for 5 years. And even though I'm coming from a grassroots perspective, just the evolution of now having a chance to apply for certain grants, I always give credit to United Way, and that's not a plug. Nobody's paying me to say that. Like, I'm not saying it because Kelly worked there. Like, it's the truth. United Way literally gambled on grassroots leaders to give us a chance to get some type of funding and to use what we got to make a difference. I am extremely grateful because United Way gave me a chance. I've been able to go into the rooms of the Wells Fargos and talk to the Ally banks, and it kind of just put me in a position where people saw I was serious and I was making things work. And I also like the educational component that we were able to get. And I think that was one of the bigger reasons why me and you connected a lot when you worked with Unite Charlotte, because you really advocated for that for us. So I'm just going to say, on behalf of all of us, thank you for advocating for us to, like, just giving us a chance. You know what I'm saying? Like, because all of us have grown in that crew, and you really advocated for us to make sure that just give them a chance, or giving us the insight. What do y'all need to have? What do we need to do? So want to say that, but thank you. But also just the evolution. Like, even now when you apply for grants, I love now how sometimes you can submit a video, or I love how sometimes, you can kind of upload like a PDF of like an overview of your program, which is more professional businessy versus like so much storytelling. So I've noticed that in the last 5 years. So a lot of the other things that you said, I'm like, wow, because you've been in the industry way longer. So you've seen a lot of things. What has been your favorite trend thus far when it comes to the evolution of grant writing?
Oh my goodness. The fact that you don't have to depend on the government for your larger grants. the fact that there's more accessibility. I love that. Like what you just talked about. I love that grant makers are taking a step back now and saying, oh, let's look at how we do things and see if this is like why we do what we do the way we do it. So I'm asking you for, so anybody that's familiar with United Way, they can tell you our application process used to be just like we're asking you for like literally 16 to 20 documents, and some United Way still do 16 to 20 documents. So I love that we took, and we're not the only ones doing this. We stopped and said, why are we asking for this information? Why do we need this information? On top of that, you know, when people are writing grants, I tell them to put them in the shoes of the funder. Funders can be very risk averse, which is why that accessibility that you just talked about wasn't there. They didn't want to put their name on something that could possibly fail or go wrong. And so that's why there was no access to your grassroots organizations. So I love that now grant makers are taking more risk in who they fund. So it may be it used to be you fund who you know, you fund who you're comfortable with, and it's still that way. But now they're taking more chances on funding people that they may not know personally or they may not have a connection to. So I love that. I love that they're doing that.
Awesome. So what don't you love?
Things have changed a little bit, but not completely. What so one thing I don't love, and this does not necessarily have anything to do with grant makers, but so people not really understanding what a grant is, and then people thinking that grants are going to save their organization and grants are going to be that's their fundraising plan. And that's not the case at all. Grants should be a part of your fundraising plan, but grants are time limited. Grants always come with strings. Grants, you should not base your organization on a grant, because if that's the case, that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable at all. So, yeah, that's what I don't like about it.
Right. Yes. So there was a reason why last month we talked about fundraising. And there's a reason why we're talking about this month for grant writing, because both are needed, both are separate. They are not the same. They are not one and the same. It's just a lot. So I'm extremely excited to talk about this with you tonight. So what are the top 4 tips you give for beginner grant writers?
Top 4 tips. Number 1 that I always say is follow directions. Follow directions. I cannot emphasize that enough. A lot of times you'll get a grant packet and you'll say, well, this is stupid the way they have this set up, so I'm not going to do it this way. Or this is petty. This is dumb. Why do I have to, I've seen grants where they said, sign your stuff in blue ink and blue ink only. Or, they'll say no staples, or they'll say, one-sided only, no double-sided, whatever. It may seem very petty. Regardless, follow the doggone directions. And I say that. So from the perspective of a grant maker, I'll give you a perfect example. When I was with another United Way, I was the only person processing grants. And so my capacity was limited. And so I had a lot of rules on how you had to submit grants, because I didn't want to have to process them a certain way. So I would say, put it in this particular order, no staples, one-sided, this, that, and whatever, because it helped me as I processed these grants. I was one person. So if you didn't, depending on who you're getting, if you don't follow directions, they don't even read it. They're just done.
Right.
So you're out of the game right there. You just wasted a lot of time. So follow whatever the directions are, even if you think it's ridiculous. So that's number 1. Number 2, cultivate and maintain good relationships with potential and current funders. Perfect for me. Like I said, people are more comfortable funding people that they are familiar with, whether they know them personally or whether they know of them and that person has a good reputation in the community. I wouldn't do this again, but there was one agency that applied to one of the agencies that I was working for as a grant maker. And prior to their application, I had sat in a meeting with them, and that person was in that meeting letting somebody have it. I mean, unnecessarily letting them have it, just letting them have it. And the first thing I thought in my mind was, there's no way I would ever deal with that person in real life. And then they applied to us for a grant, and I said, absolutely not. They would drive me crazy. And so they didn't get funded. So then, and I say I wouldn't do that again. That's part of my growth as a grant maker. Over time, I got to know that person a little better, and I understood why they were so passionate and where they were coming from. And we ended up funding them, and they ended up being a great grantee. They're still crazy, but they were a fantastic grantee. They did great work. So do your best to manage your brand. Make sure that you are, if you know you're applying for grants, make sure that you know that you are a brand and your organization is a brand, and that you're maintaining those good relationships with those funders, so that they're comfortable funding you. Third, I would say build a team of people around you that can round out your skill set. If you know that you are excellent at writing, you're excellent at grammar, but you're terrible at research, find somebody who's good at research. If you know that you're excellent in a particular subject, but not, if you know you're writing grants for a certain field, let's say youth, and you know that your thing is youth sports, but not youth anything else, find somebody that can help you in other areas so that you're not stuck on youth sports. So build you a team of people that can round out whatever your particular skill set is. And then the last thing I would say, which I also think is very important, is before you start writing a grant, make sure that you are organized and have a plan. At one time, I was a full-time grant writer, and I wrote grants for a county. And so I wrote grants for every department in the county and a couple of county-funded organizations in that county. So you can imagine that if I wasn't organized, there's no way I could get it done. So I always, and the grants that I wrote had to be approved by the county commission. And so the way that I organized that is I created a summary from the beginning. When I was researching if it looked like a good grant that we could go for, I created a summary template so that I could present it to them and have all the information they need off the gate in making the decision of whether to apply for that grant or not. I always had a timeline, especially some grants require you to partner with other people. And so you've got several different hands in there. So always create a timeline and communicate well in writing with the people that you're partnering with. My timeline had on it, this is the job, this is the duty that we've got to get done, this is the action step we've got to get done, this is when it's due, this is who is due to. You check off when it's complete and make sure everybody's on the same page. So be organized and communicate with all the people that are involved in the grant process and make sure everybody is clear about what their role is in the grant writing process.
All of that. I would like to add a bonus. I would like to say create some type of Excel sheet or chart so you'll know when things are due. So yes. Like grant, especially now, like everything shifted after George Floyd. Everything shifted in the pandemic. What used to be the grant timeline is no longer the same. Like some grants that I've applied for, I typically would have gotten that money in quarter one, but now I'm getting it in quarter 2 or 3. So understand when you need to apply for it. Write down, like target the grants that you want to get, but write down the due dates, when the grant opens, when does it close? Because I got on some grants, y'all, and I'm like, dang, but it may be more organized. So I would definitely say that. Okay. Ooh, I love this. So we have Miss Dean, in the very beginning stages of starting a nonprofit in my mother's memory, I have no idea where to begin to look for grants, writing grants. Then she said, the nonprofit will provide respiratory care so caregivers can get some me time on Saturday.
Okay. So
that's a good question. That's a very good question because we get that all the time. Where do I find grants? And I'm like, once you in the mix, it kind of comes to you. But Kelly, go ahead and answer
that. You're right. So I would say, first of all, when you're in the beginning stages of a nonprofit and you're really trying to build up your just raise money. You're in a different thought process than you would be in a more established nonprofit. So I would say step number one is to ask yourself, does this grant opportunity, so once you research and once you find a grant, you got to ask yourself, does this grant opportunity align with my mission? What is my mission? What am I willing to do? What's the vision? What, you get all that together before you start researching grants. But I would say one of the things that I do is identify an organization that is similar to yours or is further along in the process than yours. Go to GuideStar, look up their 990, and their 990 will list everybody that funds them. That will give you a starting point of who may also fund you as well. And if you don't know what a 990 is, a 990 is just a nonprofit tax return. So GuideStar will give you for free the 990 of any registered 501c3 across the country. So look at who's funding people similar to your organization, or look at organizations that are at the level that you want to be, and look at who they're getting funding from. In addition to that, I would say go to the library. I think people forget we have libraries, but keep in mind the libraries have professional researchers. The libraries also have access to paid databases that you can access with your library card. So all you can access it electronically, or you can go in there and get help with it. But these people are paid to do this and they love it. My experiences with librarians are that they have been fabulous. They have been fabulous. So get a library card wherever you are, and you get access to these paid databases that will show you all the funders out there. They will show you how to research grants. They will do some of the research for you. So please take advantage of your local library. Other than that, I would say you can do a simple Google search. I mean, that's simple. That's easy. I would also say, so one of the things I used to do as a grant writer, I would go to my county's annual report, and I would look at the top 10 taxpayers in that county. And then I would research those companies, those top 10 tax-paying companies, because those are the largest companies in your counties or in your areas, in your city or your county or whatever government we're talking about. I will research their corporate social responsibility pages to see if they had one, and to see if they align with whatever it is I'm researching grants for. And even if it doesn't, I will see if I can connect with someone in their corporate social responsibility department. One of the other things that you do as you research is, if you see a funder that may not necessarily align with what you do, but you still want to get funding from there for whatever reason, you can still reach out to that funder. I have had people, and I have encouraged people to call me when I was doing grant making, and they can just ask a question. Hey, this is what I do. Do I qualify? Do I align with what it is that you fund? Sometimes I'll say, no, not right now, but here's what we have coming. And I'll say, we got an information session coming up, or give me your information. I'll put you on my distribution list for what we do have coming up. So don't hesitate to reach out to a funder and make that connection, either personally or through an email or whatever. And don't harass them. Like I said, don't make them think you're crazy, because then they'll try to stay away from you. But it's no problem to reach out to a funder. And that's actually helpful for the funder, because you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste their time if there's no alignment there. But if there's a possible alignment, you give that funder an opportunity to get to know you. And again, that lowers that risk that they may feel if they're funding somebody that they've never heard of. For government grants, grants.gov is where they put all government grants. But if you're a small nonprofit, I doubt that you're at that level yet, because government grants are a completely different animal. That's a completely different conversation altogether. The Association of Fundraising Professionals and Grants Professional Association, those are professional fundraising and grant associations. The GPA, Grants Professional Association, they provide training on research and execution of grants. So they're a great resource as well. I'll stop right there. That's a lot.
Yes, but because you're the expert here. I will say to add to that is that how I kind of did it in my mind. I just made a list of places that I frequent, which is very similar. Like with stock, like people say buy stock in the places that you go purchase stuff from. Right? So let's just say Target. Everybody go to Target. Target, like you said earlier, they have a corporate social responsibility. So it got to a point of like, oh, let me look at these companies that I support. I know they're giving back. Let me see if it aligns with what I'm doing. So Walmart has it. Target has it. Sam's, like you really, and you just Google it. People fail to go to grocery stores. You go to grocery stores every day, but Food Line, you can apply for a grant. Publix, you can apply for a grant. Like I've applied for grants for public before. I haven't received them, but I have received like in-kind donations of gift cards, $400, which I'll buy snacks and stuff for it, which is more, I guess, more of a fundraising initiative than grant writing. But you still have to put information in because you're requesting funds. So think, she said, good stuff. I'm sitting here nodding my head like good. That is good. But think that way because that's how. Thinking that way, because that's how I transitioned just my corporate entrepreneurial mindset into how do I find money, and that's how I started. And I started to make a list that goes back to your tips of staying organized. I created a spreadsheet and I was like, oh, such and such has something. I copied the link there. I found like the date when it was due, and then I put the requirements, and then I would go back and filter it. So that's something that I did. But I'm kind of type A type. I'm the most type A, type B person you'll ever meet.
But that's good. That's who you want writing those grants. Type A, type B. So you mentioned Walmart, Target, Food Line, all of them. I would definitely say, so normally if you go to their corporate social responsibility page, you'll see like, especially the ones that are national or international in focus, they will have these big fat grants. Oh, we give $1 billion to this and $1 billion to that. And if you want to be funded, it's invitation only, blah, 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 blah. But as you mentioned, normally their local stores will have a local budget where they can give out whatever they want to. And the application process is so simple for those local budgets. Walmart is like that. I know Food Lion is like that. They have these, it's very simple. It's easy money. Easy money. I think you have like do a quick report at the end or whatever, but and they're pretty broad in what they fund, and the decisions are made at the local level.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are low hanging fruit when it comes to getting grants. So don't get intimidated because an organization is large. They normally have a local budget as well.
I will add to that, Duke Energy is a prime example of that. Duke Energy has a community grant where I think you can apply for it and it's ongoing. And I think you can get 10K or you can apply for up to 10K, but it's an ongoing grant. There's no it opens, it's closed here. You can do it at any time. So look up Duke University Corporate Responsibility.
That's good.
I did want to go back when we talked about the top 4 tips for beginner grant writers. You said follow directions, which is absolutely awesome. But I also wanted to say answer the question.
Yes.
So,
yes. Oh, I have a lot to say about that.
That's why I opened the door for you, Kelly. I'm opening the door. So. And I do not like writing. I mean, I said in the beginning, I don't like grant writing. I have to do it. So, and most of the time, if you are grassroots organizations, you will have to do it. And I feel like I sacrifice a lot to write grants because grant writing takes a lot out of me. Like it makes me want to tear up sometimes. Like I will go wash clothes. I'll go fold clothes. I'll go find something to eat. I will avoid writing the grant at all costs. So, but answering the question, that's one thing. I recently met a grant writer. Her name is Melanie. And she was like, Jania, you just got to tell the story and answer the question. So talk about it, Kelly.
Oh, Jania. So look, first of all, there's different kinds of writing. If you are writing a grant for example, for the National Institute of Health, you got PhDs reading that, so you need to write PhD level grants, okay? But if you are writing a grant for Walmart or for your local foundation or whatever, keep it as simple as possible. Okay. Like Jania said, answer the question. You don't need to. So if you can find out who's going to read the grant, do that. If you can find out who's going to make the decision, do that. Because keep in mind, always put yourself in the shoes of the grant maker. Your grant is probably coming before a committee of people who probably have 10, 15, 20 grants to read themselves. So they don't want to have to go through a bunch of flowery language, or they don't want to have to go through a bunch of jargon. They don't want to do all that. They want to be able to read very concisely, very clearly the answer to the question that they asked. So do that. They don't need all the extra. Now, if they give you an opportunity to attach miscellaneous stuff like pictures or anything like that, or if you want to tell a brief story or something like that, do that. But as you're writing, make sure you're keeping it as simple and as concise as possible, and that you are answering the question that they ask. Even if you want to answer a different question, you answer the question that they ask. And if they ask you a question that you're not clear about, call them or email them or contact them and ask them what that question means. Because a lot of times, grant makers have difficulty, depending on who's writing the application, they have difficulty writing the question to get the answer that they actually want. It has everything to do with who is creating that application. So for example, let's say you've got a family foundation, and the family foundation, the person that's in charge of creating the application is an engineer, but they want to help kids. Well, that engineer is going to think completely differently than somebody who's working in the after school program or whose background is in youth. So they're going to ask the question from their engineering frame of reference, but it may not elicit the answer that they want. So if a question is confusing, just call them and say, what information are you trying to get from this? If they limit how much you can put in there, follow the limits. Don't go overboard. You don't need to write, you need to communicate. You need to get your point across. That's the goal. I'll leave that right there. Just keep it simple as possible, and write for the people that are going to be reading it.
Can I add something?
Of course.
Do not try to make your organization fit with a grant that does not align with what you're doing.
Right.
So, and I'm saying that heavily now because everything went to Black Lives Matter, diversity, inclusion. Like it was a lot of calling people out in companies about not supporting Black-led, Black benefiting organizations. And I would also like to make an announcement, if you do not know, that it is Black Philanthropy Month and you should be giving to somebody. You can give to Little Bosch University if you would like.
Yes, you can.
But you should be giving to an organization that is Black-led, Black benefiting. And we have a list of plenty that are out there. You can actually go to United Way's website and you can see.
Yes, you can.
A whole bunch, but that's neither here nor there. There has been a shift. So now it's like diversity, inclusion. It's like, well, everything could be diversity and inclusion if there's a lack of diversity and inclusion. So you have to make sure that when you do apply for said grants, that it aligns with what they're asking for. Do not waste your time.
Right. I would also say, I'm glad you said that, because you're making me think I need to start writing these thoughts now.
Oh, we're recording, so we'll just send it back.
When you're writing, do not promise to do something that you don't have the capacity to do, because whatever it is you promise to do is going to become a goal, and that's going to be tracked and measured. And grant writers talk to each other. So if you screw up a grant because you didn't do what you said you were going to do, another grantor will find out, and you will have developed a reputation. I will also say, when you're writing, don't just write something that sounds good because you think it sounds good. Make sure that anything factual can be backed up and that you credit whoever it is, wherever you got that data from. When it comes to data, so as a grant maker, I can go and look up census information. So you can put it in there. That's great. Census information is fine. You can put it in there if you want to. But what I want is access to data that I probably won't be able to get. So if you can round up some good local data, and you can credit where you got it from, or if you are surveying the actual people that are receiving services and you note your data as survey data that you did inside your organization, you can put that in there. But giving grantors access to data they wouldn't normally have is excellent. Definitely excellent. It's not just generic. When you show that you know your subject matter, you know the community that you're serving, and again, you credit where you got the data from, because I am one that will read a footnote and I'll go check that footnote. Because if it's a subject that's interesting to me, I want to go learn about it. So yeah, make sure that you are putting your notes in there about where you got data from, and that you're including data that backs up the things that you say. Don't just say, it's a whole bunch of kids out here in my neighborhood that need A, B, C, and D, and they said blah, 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 and you can't back it up. So just make sure you're writing thoroughly and you're crediting where you're getting the data from, and that you're sharing those data sources with your grant maker.
Right. Right. So what are some common mistakes that you used to see when it came to grant writing or reviewing applications? Because you've been on both ends. You've written the grants and you've also reviewed the grants. So what are some common mistakes that you saw?
Well, like I just said, citing data without putting the source, so that the grant maker is not able to verify whatever number, whatever data you can't say a whole lot of, or most people, or stuff like that, and not be able to cite a source of where that came from. Grammar mistakes, not following directions. Now a lot of stuff is presented electronically, so you don't have to like hand in something printed, but a lot of people would hand something in that was a mess, not present. It was poorly presented. I can't say not follow directions enough. Please follow directions. One tip I will say is in staying organized. One story I'll share is I applied for a grant. They sent me, I applied for a grant. Oh God, now I'm forgetting the details. Okay, this is a while ago. I applied for a grant. We were awarded the grant. We never got the check. And it was for two different departments in the county I was working for. So one department got the check, the other department did not get the check. But I did have the confirmation that we got the grant. And so I called and said, hey, one department got the check, one department didn't. They said, you didn't get a grant. I said, oh, let me show you this confirmation that I saved that says that we did. And they said, oh, and I got a response, okay, we'll send you your check. So somebody up there messed up, but because I had my confirmation and because I kept maintain my records, maintain those conversations, we ended up getting that grant, getting that money, even though we normally wouldn't have. So making sure you keep a record of the conversations and the communication that you have. If somebody promises you something, make sure you get it in writing as much as you possibly can.
And that goes back to, like, because my type A frame of mind is like, get a Google Drive, whatever it is, Microsoft, get you an Excel sheet, make tabs. So make tabs of the grants that you qualify to apply for, the links to doing it, your login, password, when it's due, when it opens, when it's due. Then another tab could be, these are the grants I applied for. Here's how much I asked for each grant, and this is when I should hear something back. You know what I'm saying? Kind of just like a check off. Like I have documents like, I've applied for these. And then you can also put, did you receive grant? Yes or no? And you can kind of date. I heard back. They said no, or whatever. Kind of just like have these tabs to help you stay organized, because it got to a point where, like, even this summer, I wrote 12 grants, 12. And I wrote 12 grants this summer alone. And so far I've heard back from 6, and I got 3 yeses and 3 nos, and still waiting to hear about 6 others. Now, that grants are not our own, not with SBU. We do have a diverse stream of revenue, but grants have been more higher on our percentage of revenue at this point, and we're working on changing that. But just stay as organized as possible. And especially if you have the executive summary and stuff together, it's easy to plug and play.
Right.
Sometimes the questions can kind of be the same, or you can answer them the same, and you just might need to tweak a little things here and there. And that's just from what I've learned.
Right.
But I ain't no grant writer. When people ask me to write their grants, absolutely not. There is not enough. You cannot pay me. You do not have $1 million to pay me to write it. And I want to guarantee that you're going to get it. You know, that ain't my, which goes into my next question. What are the pros and cons of getting a grant writer? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? When should you do it? When should you not do it? All these questions.
So that is subjective. So should you or should you not? Definitely subjective. So the pros of getting a grant writer is that grant writing can be a lot of work. Like a Walmart grant you can do in an hour, less than an hour. However, if you're writing something more involved, it's a lot of work. So a grant writer can increase your capacity as an organization. A grant writer can provide you with a professional product that you can use as a template moving forward if you decide that you want to write your own grants. A grant writer can give you an opinion, can give you an outsider's just perspective on what it is you're requesting funding for. Because a lot of times, and I've been a victim of this too, I've done it to myself. A lot of times you're so passionate about a topic that you don't even realize that people outside of your organization have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about it. So a grant writer can put that in perspective for you. They can give you a professional product. And definitely if you are writing larger grants, if you're right, especially government grants, they are absolutely worth it. You're going to pay for them, but they are absolutely worth it because it's big money, but it's also a lot of involvement and a lot of work that goes into it. I'll give you a perfect example. I won't say any organization's name, but I know an organization that gets a government grant. That grant is about $4 to $6 million. It's about a $4 to $6 million grant. Well, they pay their grant writer $12,000. And that is because that grant writer knows that specific government grant. They know that agency. They know what the people at the agency are looking for. They have templates already put together. So if you come to them, they can get it done. Now, the cons of using a grant writer is don't think you're going to hire a grant writer and then that's it, you're done. You still have to work with that grant writer to provide research and data for them to put, or to provide data about your organization for them to put in that grant. So it's not like you're not doing any work. Also, it's definitely a cost. And when it comes to cost, I'll say this. A lot of people say, how much does a grant writer cost? And I talked about that just now as far as the government grant. So it's going to be expensive the more work that is involved. But I will say you get what you pay for. Professionally, as a profession, it is unethical for a grant writer to say, oh, your grant, you're asking for $1,000, I'm going to charge you 10%. Absolutely not. It's unethical to do that because it incentivizes asking for larger dollars, even if you don't need those larger dollars. So a grant writer should have a flat fee and be able to tell you this is how much it's going to cost. When I was doing grant writing as a consultant, I would ask them what it is. I would look at the grant, do some research on the grant, and I would give them an estimate based on the number of hours that I thought it was going to take me to get that grant done. So also, most grant makers, I've actually never seen a grant maker allow you to write in the cost of a grant writer into your grant. Yeah, you don't really do that. And then yeah, I'll just say you're gonna get what you pay for when it comes to a grant writer. I've seen people get scammed. People will hire a grant writer. The grant writer gives them a product and it's a hot mess. Grant writers can't guarantee funding. They can only guarantee that their work. They can say, here's my work. I can guarantee you, I'll give you my best, but they can't guarantee that you will be funded. So you just have to determine, what's my capacity? Do I want to learn how to write this grant? Do I have the time? Do I have the money? If I have the money to hire a grant writer, but I don't have the time to do the work myself, a grant writer is absolutely worth it. You just have to make sure that you find the right one and you find a grant writer that's a good fit for the grant that you are applying for. Because writing Walmart grant is completely different from writing a foundation grant, and absolutely 110% different than writing a government grant. So it's three different things. So you have to find a person that has the right skill set. And the more involved the grant is, the more likely it is that it's worth it to hire a grant writer.
Correct. I absolutely agree. We used a grant writer recently because I just didn't have the capacity to complete it. And I wanted something just a little bit more cleaner and get another eye on it that was with a completely new potential funder. So, but this was the first time I had been writing all of them. And I would say when you write them, like keep tally of how many you actually get, because for me, I never really extended myself grace because I was writing grants. I just always thought I was terrible at doing it, but I wasn't acknowledging that I was getting some, you know. So I was like, I'm terrible because I just didn't like doing it. It's completely different when you don't like doing it, but it's another ball game when you don't like it, but you actually getting it. So I still don't like writing grants, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. Well, a grant writer should be able to tell you their success rate.
Yeah.
Especially they can break it down by certain type of grants or whatever, but definitely give you their success rate. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I hope you guys, I see that someone said this is great information. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Like this is an opportunity for you to talk to someone that is an expert on both ends. I coordinated this for you so you can ask the questions. And but we are going to be wrapping up soon. We wrap up at 7:30 and we have stayed on time. So Kelly, is there anything else that you want to share or put out there for people to know about grant writing?
One thing I will add is it's what I couldn't remember to say earlier. So if you're running a nonprofit and you're providing services, keep track of the services that you are not able to provide because you don't have the capacity. Because when you write a grant and you say, I need your money to help build my capacity, you will have the data to back it up. So for example, one organization, they would have people come in asking for services, just the organization I work with. And I told them to start tracking how many people a day or how many people a week or how many people a month they had to turn away for services, so that when they went and wrote a grant to United Way or a foundation or whatever, they could say, over the past 6 months, over the past year, we have had to turn away this number of people. We've had to turn away this number of people, which is this percentage of the people we actually serve, because we don't have the capacity or the resources to provide those services. And this is why I'm asking you for money. That makes absolute sense to a grant maker. Another example, if you, for example, get Medicaid money or something like that. I work with a mental health organization, and they were having such a hard time explaining why they needed money. And they were making it so hard for themselves. And so I said, look, take one service. How much does Medicaid pay you for that service? And they gave me a number. Oh, well, maybe it's like $5 an hour. I said, how much does it actually cost to provide that service? $8 an hour. So when you write a grant to the funder and say, we get Medicaid funding, but it only pays for this percentage of services, we are asking you to cover the gap in what it actually costs to provide those services. That is very easy to understand for a grant maker. So don't make it too hard on yourself. Just maintain your own organizational data for the services that you are actually providing. And that helps a grant maker understand, oh, okay, I don't have to be a mental health expert, or I don't have to be an expert on senior services or whatever to understand what you just said. Very easy.
Love it. So we have someone from Facebook asking, are grants only available for nonprofits?
Most grants are only available for 501c3 organizations, but not all grants. Some funders, especially now, are willing to fund a grassroots organization that does not have their 501c3 yet. What normally will happen is that 501c3 would have to get a fiscal agent, because I know, for example, for United Way, we have to, unless you're a vendor, for us to write a check to you, you have to be a 501c3. So we will accept a fiscal agent as opposed to that you use as opposed to the regular organization. Some government grants will fund private for-profit organizations. The only difference is you have to sign a contract that says you're not providing these services for profit. So it just depends on the funder. Some foundations will fund a for-profit organization or will fund a other structured organizations, 501c6, 501c whatever. It just depends, but they're out there. They're definitely out there. But the majority of funders provide grants to 501c3 organizations.
Okay, so we have a question from Education Over Debt. Where do you find grant writers?
So word of mouth is good, because if you get it from word of mouth, you know that, or if you find a list of people who have organizations that have already received the grant that you're going for, you can ask them who wrote their grant and start there. Additionally, there's the Grant Professionals Association that actually certifies grant writers. So if you go to their website, I think it's GPA. So I think that stands for Grant Professionals Association. They have a list of certified grant writers. The Association of Fundraising Professionals, you have grant writers that are a part of those organizations. So those are good places to start.
Yes. And I also say, again, if you are a beginner grant writer, this is me speaking. I don't know if I would necessarily invest money in a grant writer at first, because there's so much development that you have to do and so many kinks that you may be still working out in your organization. A lot of the clients that I work with, they have an idea, but they haven't really even piloted or tested it or to see if the community is really going to engage and react in the way that they think. So I think sometimes in the beginning, getting a grant writer too soon may be putting you in the red more so in the green, because you're not clear yet of what it is that you're doing as a service, let alone the results. So that goes back to making sure you have your mission statement, your vision statement, making sure you are answering the question, what is the solution to what you're offering? How is your program set up? Like, really the strategy behind it all, because in the beginning you may not, and I think Kelly said this earlier, but you may not have any real performance metrics or values at first, and you will have to go Google and kind of find something locally to kind of bring it home. But as you continue to grow, you are going to collect data. You're going to see how many people you serve. You're going to see how long they're in the program. You're going to see retention rate. You're just going to learn so much as you go. So you can find grant writers, but I just want to throw that out there. Like, don't.
Yeah, you may not be ready for one.
You may not be ready for
one. I would also say, so United Way has something called skills-based volunteering, where we connect a professional with an organization to volunteer with them. So I would just do a Google search of skills-based volunteering and see who is offering that service. And there may be somebody willing to volunteer. Now, they're not going to volunteer to write a grant for $100,000. They're not doing that. But if you are a new organization just starting out, just like Jania just said, they can help you to create a very polished vision statement, a polished executive summary, a polished mission statement, and talk to you about the difference between those things. They can help you polish those pieces, because there's certain pieces that are going to be in every grant. So they can help you create those polished pieces and create a template. And a lot of people are willing to do that on a volunteer basis. Also, you have a board. Find somebody to serve on your board that has written grants before, that has that experience, and they can help you in that process. They may not write the full grant for you, but they can help you with those polished pieces. They can review. Additionally, I would also say, if you have an opportunity to be a grant reviewer, a lot of times people don't have everybody that they need. So you can serve a volunteer on a committee to be a grant reviewer. That will help you in your grant writing, to sit in that seat of a grant maker. And it will also help introduce you to other people that are in the grant field as well.
Correct. So this was good. Thank you, Kelly, for your time, like your service, your advocacy, all the things for us. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's training about grant writing. Please watch the playback. Please go on Facebook. We were having some technical difficulties. Kelly, you probably didn't realize it, but we
Nope.
were having some technical difficulties. So now it should have started to stream live in the Facebook page, but we also put the link in the YouTube for it so you can see the full entire broadcast. So we thank you. We appreciate you. We hope this helps. And happy grant writing. That's all I got for you. Y'all are welcome. Y'all have a good night.